Greetings, I'm Dike Rostant. Welcome back to the TTT News. The Merry Monarch is traipsing its way along from our shores after giving us a taste, and we are going in-depth on future possibilities for the steelpan with stalwart in the movement, musician, educator, drillmaster, transcriber, and so much more, Natasha Joseph. Welcome, Natasha. How are you doing?
I'm fine. Glad to be here.
The pleasure is ours. No, for the most of the conversation, I want to focus on what steelpan in Trinidad and Tobago and beyond can look outside of competition. But we need to do the needful and ask, what are your thoughts in the lead up to this Taster Carnival with regard to the steelpan?
I think in my experience of the lead up, some bands had difficulty with the timing. We are accustomed to a longer time frame in terms of getting ourselves ready, but everything went smoothly after the fact. So it just shows the exceptional musicianship of the steelpan musicians that we have in our fraternity. Rise to all the challenges that may have come up. And the event went well. One part of the event that I really enjoyed was the fact that it was not a competition.
It says people say music is a mission, not a competition. But and like I said, we're going to be getting to that. But what, in terms of those challenges, dealing with time, and you said that there's a musicianship and rising to that challenge. How were some of the people that you speak with able to deal with it? Is it a matter of having different people practice at different times, spacing out the band a little more? What did people do?
Staggered rehearsals, which would give way for social distancing in rehearsal. Of course, getting closer and closer to showtime, you'd have more people inside of the limited space available. But definitely there were a lot of staggered rehearsals. People come at different times to learn the music and so on. And just organizing things like making sure the pans sound well, so you had to make sure the tuner available. I don't feel like the tuners would have had an easy time in this short period as well, having to make several stops.
How that even working though, Natasha? Because I just looking from the outside in, sometimes you have an arranger and on a night, the music just flowing out of the person. So they say, okay, well, you see what this piece of the song that we were doing, we're going to change, we're going to scrap that and shift it to this. How does that work when you have people staggering in and out? I know you said coming close, they have more people, but how was that working?
Yeah, well, if somebody misses something as important as that, then definitely upon entry to their next time that they come rehearsal, they would probably, practice away from the band to learn the new changes before coming together. That's the best you could do in those type of situations. And there were times in the past where changes were made much closer to performance time, and people just had to deal with it. However, people are learning music before they go on stage and those kind of things.
And again, so once more, that speaks to the musicianship. But in terms of expand on it a little bit, you think it was almost like a breath of fresh air, certain ways that it was not a competition. What did that allow for, the fact that it wasn't a competition?
The main thing, in my opinion, is that in terms of arranging, it allowed all arrangers across the board more creative freedom, because it didn't have a particular criteria to meet in terms of, okay, in this arrangement, we're looking for this and we're looking for that and we're looking for that. So that left all arrangers just free to do whatever they want to do creatively. I find that, in the competition setting, because we have criteria to meet, sometimes it could affect how we as arrangers decide to do something.
And what are some of the things that struck you the most in terms of people kind of moving outside of the box of some of the criteria that they would be boxed in by when they're judging and saying, okay, well, these are the things we need to check off of this list in this panorama piece?
Um, it's difficult to really put into words at the moment, but okay, for instance, most of the bands that perform, you know, we all sounded well, but there was, I would say, the lack of pressure to try and win then, because you know nobody to beat, you know, would have caused our Rangers to be more relaxed and therefore put down their best to work.
Okay, and I even heard some songs, I think, and one of them was Essence, that were not from Trinidad and Tobago. So looking at seeing, okay, well, the pan could deal with this
Yes,
type of music
yes,
as well. Is that something that struck
yeah,
you as well?
yeah. But that kind of carried me back in time to, I don't know if you remember, we had a competition that used to happen after Panorama called Pan in the 21st Century, where we played a non-calypso and a calypso, or a Panorama arrangement. And to be honest with you, I really, really enjoyed just to be able to listen to everybody and hear what people come in with creatively, what arrangers, how arrangers thinking, and the players seem to enjoy it as well. Um, and as you say, it really was a breath of fresh air in terms of getting to hear sounds in other genres, you know, on the instrument. Some of the songs they make it like a bomb tune, so it have calypso rhythm, but definitely the melody and so on is of the other genre. And it was well received by all, I can tell you that.
And definitely that's something that we want to talk about when we return. We're speaking with Natasha Joseph, and we really want to lock in on the possibilities of steel pan outside of the competition when we return. Stay with us. Listening to music of one of my favorite calypsonians, Stay Up Zimbabwe. We are speaking with the performer at this point in time, Natasha Joseph, looking at the possibilities for steel pan outside a or competition. And Natasha, I remember somebody saying that one of the best things that happened to pan is Panorama. One of the worst things that happened to pan is Panorama. So, how you reconcile with that statement?
Um, it really feels like a love-hate relationship. Um, and I can relate with both statements. One of the best things to happen to pan was Panorama. It gave Panis an opportunity to come together. It's like a big reunion that happens at a specific time period every year. And that's the time, we all get to socialize as musicians and panists, and carry on our ancestors' legacy. So in that respect, yes, it's one of the best things to happen for Pan. But then the other statement, Panorama is one of the worst things. Um, I can only speak on my personal experience where that statement is concerned, and part of it is really the competition aspect. Um, you know, there are a lot of bands that don't have players because the requirements a band has to have. If you're a large band in a panorama setting, you have to have 100 plus. The sizes of the bands, create a sort of a vacuum. So I always say, in this panorama thing, we have more fans than players, and that's one of the reasons why you would see a lot of people in more than one band for panorama. Because some bands have to make up the numbers. They don't actually have that core of players already there through the year or anything like that. So it caused a lot of those kind of startups, shadow bands, for lack of a better word.
But I like the fact that you use the word vacuum. So nature don't like a vacuum. So if we were just to say, okay, we're moving away from the panorama, from the competition format, what are some of the things that could take the place? What would we do instead to allow these spaces for people in the steelpan movement to express themselves, to come together, to have that community, to continue ancestors' legacy, all these things that you spoke about? What do we do instead?
Well, I think a Taste of Carnival was just the beginning. It certainly will evolve if we think about it in that way. So you remember a long time we used to have blockos. That's a possibility. Maybe every weekend something you have a group of bands in a big enough area where the public could come and enjoy and be entertained by their favorite bands. So that's one possibility.
But Miss Natasha, it sounds like you want to spread this thing outside a carnival. But I thought pan is just for carnival.
No, I don't only play pan for carnival. I play pan all through the year.
So
we do have seasonal players, right? But pan is not just for carnival. But definitely we can use pan for carnival for various things. I mean, back in the days before panorama was something, they had pan in the party. You understand? Where pan was a major part of a major feature in those events. Of course, time evolve and we move away from that. And I'm not saying that we have to go back particularly there, but as creative minds, we get to sit and think about our future and how we want to move forward. And I know I'm not alone in relishing the fact of the no competition.
But how do we kind of work towards formalizing and establishing it so that it's not that it was an accident, it happened because of COVID? So the pandemic would have passed us and still we have these outlets, we have these spaces where these kind of things can happen. What about schools? Where do we go from there? Because good, bad, or indifferent, I think you and a few other females in the movement are still considered, and sometimes sadly so, as trailblazers. So in terms of like even having the level of decision making, being able to affect policy, what are some of those things we need to do so that we can have these things operating outside the competitions?
That's a big question. Um, but I would say some of the things that we could do to ensure that we have that outside of the competition is, um, well, I'm big on education, so my brain instantly went there. Continuous education of the generations that are coming forward, so that we produce more musicians, more panists, which would make certain things easier. In terms of policy, um, I am not in a position to change or create any policies at the moment, but I definitely think that we should maintain the showcase aspect and the communion aspect of the steel band, you know. And as I say, we get to come together as creatives to think about it. So it shouldn't be, well, I think and my idea only. There's more of me out there,
Okay.
and we
And
could sit and discuss possibilities that we could become allies to one another.
in terms of the last
You
minute we
know,
have, I like the fact that you say musician and panist. Where do you draw the line, and do you draw the line at all? And this is in the last minute.
well, there is a line. Um, when somebody refers to someone as a panist, they're just looking at somebody who has the ability to play the instrument, right? Whether that person actually is music literate or not. When you say musician, that's somebody who has went through some sort of training and actually learned music theory at a professional level, or just somebody who went to school, for lack of a better word, even if you're self-taught, and they also play the instrument.
And that is that's a beautiful point to put a little pause on this conversation, because we have some hard questions and we're going to ask them again a little further down the line. But thank you for spending some time with us, and I'm glad that we described you as a musician and educator, Natasha Joseph. And on behalf of our entire news team, I'm Dike Rostant. Thank you for joining us.